Good evening. Thanks for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines tonight. Stock markets post the biggest single-day fall in 2 months. The Sensex declines nearly 900 points. All sectoral indices end in the red. The rupee also hits a one-month low against the dollar. Crude oil prices fall once again amidst concerns over demand. Stock markets wobble across the world. The euro falls below parity against the dollar. On the other hand, stocks rise in China as the central bank cuts rates for the second time in 2 weeks. Pharma major Cipla is hoping to double its India business from the current 10,000 crore rupees in 5 years. CEO Umang Vohra sees growth from organic and inorganic opportunities. Also adds the US business has the potential to double in size in the next 5 years. That's a CNBC-TV18 exclusive. Microlabs, the makers of Dolo 650, reject allegations that the company provided freebies worth 1,000 crore rupees to doctors. Say the total revenue from selling Dolo during the pandemic was only 350 crores. That's CNBC-TV18 exclusive. Infosys cuts variable payout for employees in a bid to protect margins. Wipro and TCS have also deferred or reduced the variable pay even as they grapple with increased attrition.
We have almost unlimited potential going ahead in expanding the car market.
Maruti-Suzuki has unlimited potential to expand the car maker market, says Chairman R.C. Bhargava. Adds Suzuki will continue to focus on the entry-level segment and the partnership with Toyota will cater to the high-end aspirational market. That's an exclusive. Delhi leads the electric vehicle race with 10% of new vehicle registrations. The state's Transport Minister Kailash Gehlot is aiming to achieve 75% electrification of public transport by 2025 and build charging stations every 3 kilometers. Delhi's Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia says the BJP made him an offer to join the party and all cases against him would be closed. BJP rejects the claim, calls it baseless. Kejriwal Sisodia on a 2-day visit to Polbound, Gujarat. The Supreme Court terminates the panel appointed to manage the affairs of the All India Football Federation, directs for elections to take place, addressing the concerns raised by International Football Authority. That's FIFA. The suspension was imposed on India's Football Federation and it's likely to be lifted soon. Well, let's start with the market action. The stock market's posting the biggest single-day fall in 2 months. The Sensex declining nearly 900 points today and all sectoral indices closing in the red. Anuj joins us now to wrap up the market action for us. Anuj, not a great start to the week.
Well, not a good start to the expiry week. Second day running market had big losses after Friday's losses. In fact, today was worse than Friday as well. The Nifty is now trading below the near-term support levels of the 10-day exponential moving average. And it looks like maybe the mean reversion trade to 20-day moving average is on now. And what was disappointing for the bulls was second day running, the market leading sector, which is the bank Nifty, was underperforming. In fact, seeing serious selling. In 2 days, it's down over 3%. It's all global in nature because dollars rally has led to this move. And in fact, back home as well, while the euro is below parity once again, the rupee is still holding 80, maybe because of the decline in Brent crude prices as well. In terms of stocks, well, everything was down. I just want to highlight a few financials. So Axis, the HDFC Twins, State Bank, Bajaj Finance were all lower. Commodity and commodity consumer both were down. Tata Steel and Asian Paints. Adani Ports was down. Tata Motors was down. Larsen and Toubro and the large cap IT stocks like Infosys and Wipro. So across the board, there was quite a bit of sell-off today. No hiding place.
No hiding place today. Anuj, many thanks. And as I mentioned, the Indian rupee also hitting its lowest level in a month. The dollar index is at a 5-week high. Central bankers from around the world get ready for the Jackson Hole Summit. Lata joins us now with more on the rupee and its trajectory. It's all about the dollar strength today, isn't it, Lata?
That's right. It's not so much a rupee weakness story as a dollar strength story. Globally, that index has gone back to 108 plus, a level we saw way back in mid-July, and that's because of the risk aversion and therefore the going back to safe haven asset, which is the dollar. The risk aversion coming on the eve of Jerome Powell's speech at Jackson Hole, which is scheduled on Thursday. The market's fear is that he may sound more hawkish than what the market is forecasting at this point in time. It's forecasting a cut sometime in 2023. And it's quite possible that Chairman Powell may scotch those expectations. What we've seen is actually weakness across, and you'll have been speaking about it, The Chinese yuan has gone to 6.8. That's because there were, of course, rate cuts in China. Euro has gone below parity. And all EM currencies over the last 2 trading days have lost at least 1% vis-a-vis the dollar. So basically, again, a dollar strength story. In India itself, people had gone, of course, seriously short the dollar versus the rupee. So there was a bit of a positioning. And you saw as the rupee moved towards 79.90 towards the dollar, the Reserve Bank came in and supplied a lot of dollars. So it looks like the Reserve Bank is still protecting that 80 mark. But there are other factors that are also protecting the rupee. Crude price is much lower than what it was a month ago when the rupee had gone to 80. Likewise, FPI flows, foreign flows, are much higher than what they were a month ago. But the rupee will remain vulnerable to global ebbs and flows of the dollar. We have to wait really for Thursday to see whether the tide changes.
All right, Atta, many thanks. And yes, we will be tracking the Jackson Hole summit very closely. Now, crude oil prices slumping on the back of concerns that an aggressive rate hike regime in the U.S. might weaken the global economy and take its toll on fuel demand. Investors will pay close attention to Fed Chair Jerome Powell's comments when he addresses the annual Global Central Banking Conference in Jackson Hole this Friday. In a surprise move, China has trimmed its key lending rates again. Just a week after cutting 2 interest rates, the People's Bank of China has cut its 5-year loan prime rate by 15 basis points and 1-year PLR by 5 basis points. The latest round of cuts is seen as an attempt to revive the credit demand and fire up the economy, which has been hurt by extended COVID lockdowns and property debt problems. On to a CNBC-TV18 exclusive tonight. The big newsmaker this evening, Cipla, hopes to double its India business from the current 10,000 crore rupees over the next 5 years. Speaking exclusively to us, the MD and CEO of Cipla, Umang Vohra, said he's hoping to augment the India business with both organic and inorganic growth opportunities. He also said that the US business has the potential to double in 5 years.
We have about a 10,000 crore business in India. We believe that that business has the potential to double in 5 years. And I think obviously it'll be augmented with an organic play, but also organic consumption, if I was to say that. But, you know, let's look at the demographic factors for India. We have so a couple of things have been enabled in the Indian context. The first is just the birth of insurance through Ayushman Bharat and several other schemes. And this creates affordability for a lot of procedures that used to sit outside of several families. So I think from a government side, this has been a very big boost. The second is just the deepening of hospitals. If you were to travel in the interiors of India about 5 or 7 years back, and you were to do the same trip today, you'd suddenly see a lot of hospitals, lots of clinics, lots of chemist stores coming up in these cities. And I think that's, you know, people don't need to travel necessarily to metros or tier 1 towns now to get treatment. They can hope to get it in the tier 2 towns and the tier 3 towns. So we see these as huge enablers of growth in this part of the country. So I think it's going to, for us, India is likely to be a market that doubles hopefully in 5 years, aided inorganically as well. And that's the opportunity for us.
There are a fair number of headwinds that companies in the pharmaceutical space are dealing with when it comes to the US market. But let's start by talking about the opportunities and what the pipeline looks like in terms of launches and what that could potentially mean in terms of the size of your US business.
Our US business is about 500 million, and we are hoping that that business also could benefit significantly out of launches that are coming. We think that the launches of products that we've been public about in the asthma and the COPD space are significant opportunities for us and for our size in the US. We also look at the peptide trajectory of products that we've been able to partner, develop on our own, which is also very significant. Each of these products could be very, very meaningful, almost to the extent of 10-15% and upwards of our current base. So as we see a range of products which are there, I think this business could significantly increase from the current levels to the levels that we think in 5 years. We think even this business has the potential of doubling in size in the next 5 years or so.
And you can catch that entire conversation with Cipla's head Umang Vohra all day on CNBC TV18. Dolo maker Micro Labs is in the eye of a storm over allegations that it distributed freebies worth over 1,000 crore rupees to boost sales of the paracetamol drug that was widely prescribed during COVID treatment. Ekta is here to explain how Dolo sales zoomed since the onset of the pandemic and what the company has to say about the allegations. Ekta.
Thanks for that. Well, yes, Dolo 650, which is the fever and pain-reducing medicine which shot to fame during COVID-19 and in many instances is now becoming the go-to pain-relieving drug, has come in the line of fire recently. Allegations brought up in the Supreme Court were that the manufacturer of Dolo, Micro Labs, distributed freebies worth around 1,000 crores to doctors to prescribe the 650 mg drug. Interestingly, during the period of March 2020 to Jan 2022, the oral pain market grew 23% due to COVID-19 related demand. Paracetamols were prescribed over other molecules such as ibuprofen to treat COVID. And it's during the COVID-19 period of around March 2020 to Feb 2022 that Dolo 650 mg rose to become the highest selling paracetamol drug. In fact, during this time, the Dolo brand, led by the 650 mg dose, grew to enjoy 22% share of the 3,100 crore worth of paracetamol-based drugs sold during the COVID-19 period, which means 22 out of 100 people were choosing to buy Dolo amongst all the paracetamol drugs during that time. And in terms of sales for Dolo, the 650 mg dose, despite being under price control or the national list of essential medicines, managed to generate sales of over 300 crores in COVID-19 during the period of March 2021 to Feb 2022. The sales in some cases touched over 10 to even 30 times of other comparative drugs in that space. So what could have happened? Interestingly, the Dolo 650 mg brand was launched in 1993, was one of the first movers in the market, and has at one point even enjoyed 80 to 90% market share in the 650 mg category. Eventually, the market share settled at around 50%. This has shot up to 58% during COVID-19. Interestingly, the Dolo brand sees this kind of stickiness only for the 650 mg variant, despite selling other mg variants as well, such as 500 mg. What tends to happen, doctors and experts point out, is that the brand becomes sticky. Keeping allegations of freebies aside, experts point out that 650 mg has in fact become a regular dosage for adults when it comes to paracetamol for years. And doctors tend to follow other doctors in terms of prescribing a drug, and this was possibly even more during a time of uncertainty, which was during COVID-19. Dolo, experts point out, grew because of the strong word of mouth, resulting in the brand almost becoming a default drug during this time. To illustrate it better, experts cite the example of Crocin. The drug enjoys one of the strongest reputations amongst the pain and fever relieving brands when there are many substitutes available. Similarly, Calpol is more associated with children but is also available for adults. And from the ibuprofen category, Combiflam is one of the top 100 brands in the country, whereas other substitutes don't see equal traction. Lastly, while the jury is out on whether or not Micro Labs did dole out freebies, no pun intended, the company says the 1,000 crore figure is indeed data which is generated over many years across their 14 divisions and a 6,000 strong field force. In fact, the only freebies, according to them, that they did give out were the ones allowed, such as books, pens and small mementos. They say the company, meanwhile, says it is currently cooperating with the investigation.
We are in the process of compiling the data. But in any case, as I look at it, it will not cross 2 to 3% of our year's turnover. 1,000 crores for several years for across the division, but somehow it got picked up like 1,000 crores on Dolo 650 during COVID. Absolutely baseless. Any figures you look at it, even your presentation also made it clear. 350 crore brand, 1,000, and that to a brand under price control, 1,000 crores spending on that. It just doesn't. It wouldn't have made sense to any company, and obviously it didn't make sense to us. We didn't do that. It has been found that we have spent 1,000 crores, and we are giving explanation on how we spent the 1,000 crores across the division for all brands. Once again, I would like to say that not for Dolo 650 is not under investigation or anything of that sort. It's only the reports which are come out which talk like that. Yeah. Everything is under the law, and we have been law-abiding citizens all the time, and we are going to give that explanation, and that is going to be the thing. It's not anything worrisome or something. Whatever explanation is required, our company has been giving to the IT department, and we should come out clean. That's not a problem.
Well, that's the management of Dolo makers Micro Labs responding to the Income Tax Department's allegations saying that they have spent 1,000 crore rupees in providing freebies to doctors. Infosys has reduced the variable payout for its employees to protect its margins. Remember, TCS and Wipro have already deferred or reduced the variable payouts. Haripriya Suresh joins us now with the details. Haripriya.
In what has become an industry trend, Infosys is now the latest company to make changes to its variable payouts for the first quarter of FY23. Infosys has told employees that they will, on average, the employees will receive 70% of their variable payout, but it depending on what their pay grade is and what department they're from. It has attributed this to margin pressures, primarily because of compensation revisions that it has done, as well as talent that it has hired. This, of course, comes soon after both Wipro and TCS have made similar announcements. TCS has deferred the payout for certain grades of employees, whereas Wipro has said that anyone in band C and above will not be receiving the variable payout for this quarter. This, of course, for Infosys, its Q1 operating margins was at 20% and its attrition was at 28.4%. All of them are seeing significant increases in wage costs as well as increased attrition. And what the impact of this move will be on Infosys attrition levels remains to be seen.
Haripriya, many thanks for joining us. Now, Delhi has emerged as the top state in adoption of electric vehicles across India. The capital has 1.6 lakh registered EVs, with 62,000 registered in the last 2 years. Delhi's Transport Minister Kailash Gehlot says the government is aiming to achieve 75% electrification of public transport by 2025 and intends building charging stations every 3 kilometres. He's also urged the centre's FAME policy to focus on electrification of public buses.
The most important target is of creating a good infrastructure of network of charging stations. Already more than 2,000 charging points we already have. I think we will be able to set up almost 300 charging stations. So each station will have multiple charging points, and that is the target. So our goal is to provide one charging point to every person in a radius of 3 kilometers.
And staying with auto, Maruti-Suzuki has unlimited potential to expand the car market. That's the word in from Maruti chairman R.C. Bhargava. Speaking exclusively to me, he added that the company will continue to focus on the entry-level market and its partnership with Toyota will cater to the high-end aspirational market.
I think Toyota coming into this has very major significance for us. One, it gives us access to a number of new technologies. For example, this hybrid technology, which is now coming in with the Grand Vitara, is not a technology which is available anywhere else. But we will be introducing this technology, and it brings down fuel consumption by 35–40%.
And you can catch that entire conversation with Maruti's chairman R.C. Bhargava at 9:30 p.m. right here on CNBC-TV18's On the Record. Time for us to head into a break, but up next, more than 2% of India's population is coping with disability, and social impact startups are seeing the opportunity to provide assistive technology. A special report when we return. India is seeing a divide among the purchasing trends of its rich and poor amidst rising inflation, and this trend is visible among India's 700 million smartphone users too. Shilpa Ranipeta and Arundhati Ramanan bring us a report on why premium smartphones have seen bumper sales while feature phones declined in double digits.
India's rich are increasingly buying and upgrading to new phones, while the lower end of the pyramid is putting off new mobile phone purchases as inflation pinches. Data from market intelligence firm Counterpoint Research shows India's smartphone shipments fell 5% sequentially in the April to June quarter to around 37 million units as consumer demand declined. The trend is more visible in the entry and budget segments, which make up for 1/3 of the total smartphone market. Data from IDC and Counterpoint shows that the entry-level smartphone segment, which costs less than 10,000 rupees, declined over 15% in Q2, while feature phones declined 17% sequentially. Meanwhile, mid-range smartphones grew 21%, and the highest growth came from the premium segment, which grew 83% year-on-year.
entry tier is impacted a lot, and entry tier is 1/3 of the total smartphone market. So that is impacted because the offers dried up. Very few launches happened in that particular segment, and consumers were holding upon to their purchases. Now the growth is being driven by the mid and the premium tier. While the overall market we are projecting at a single-digit growth year on year, but the premium market is likely to grow by 18 to 20%, and that's a big jump.
Supply constraints that impacted smartphone sales in 2020 and 2021 have eased considerably, and now it is rising input costs and inflation that's making smartphones costlier. The average selling price of smartphones grew 15% in the quarter to around $213, while it was $211 in the first quarter of 2022 and around $190 in 2021. As a result, consumers would rather repair their device or buy a refurbished one than buy a new phone.
Supply chain, logistic issues were there. Even the freight cost went up, and then you have these macroeconomic headwinds that came into the picture. So overall, we can see a 7 to 10% hike that has happened year on year on certain models. Now that will negate a bit because you'll have festive offers coming in. Net, we can see that there could be end up, as we go into festive season, consumer might be paying up like 5 to 7% more for their devices they could have bought a year back.
This has smartphone makers too, focusing more on launching mid and premium smartphones. Samsung, for instance, launched 5 new flagship smartphones this year and also recently launched its super premium Z Flip 4 and Z Fold 4 smartphones in India. Priced between 90,000 to nearly 2 lakh rupees, these smartphones saw 50,000 pre-bookings in one day.
On the day one, we have got 50,000 plus pre-booking. So it's a record pre-booking for us. So there were 5 new A series which were launched. There have been new launches in M series, which is 13, 5G, 33 and 53. So 4 M series, and similarly in the F series. And this year we have launched 5 new flagship smartphones. So, we are very, very bullish about the market.
However, August sales that saw one round of festive sales are showing signs of optimism, having grown 8 to 9% after months of decline. All eyes are now on the festive season, a period that contributes 40% to annual smartphone sales. Retailers too are now counting on offers and discounts, not just to boost sales of new launches, but also clear existing inventory that piled up due to demand contraction. In Mumbai, with Shilpa Ranipeta, Arundhati Ramanan.
Well, let's now take a look at the headlines in the startup space. Shruti standing by with the startup snapshot this evening. Shruti.
Thanks for that. Let's take a look at the key startup headlines we're tracking this evening. PharmEasy recalls its draft IPO papers with plans of raising funds through rights issue instead. The e-pharmacy player cites market conditions and strategic considerations as reasons behind the withdrawal of its 6,250 crore rupees IPO plan. Paytm shareholders approved the reappointment of Vijay Shekhar Sharma as the managing director and CEO for another 5 years. The vote to retain the founder as the company's CEO comes despite concerns raised by proxy advisory firms over remuneration and commitment. Moving on, Nandan Nilekani-backed ShopX shuts down operations, filing an application under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. According to reports, the e-commerce enablement startup had raised over $50 million and was valued at over $100 million in its previous round. And finally, Sequoia's startup accelerator program Surge announces its 7th cohort with 15 early-stage startups from India and Southeast Asia. Software and enterprise-focused startups dominate the list, accounting for at least 10 out of 15 startups. And with that, it's back to you.
Shruti, many thanks for joining us. Now, every year, more and more people in India fall under the disabled category, and not just because the definition of disability has been expanded. According to the 2011 census, over 2% of India's population, that's over 2.5 crore Indians, live with one form of disability or another. And this number is estimated to have risen considerably in the 11 years since that number was published. Shraddha Tiwari and Arundhati Ramanan report that this is opening a huge opportunity for assistive technology, especially given advances in robotics, AI, and machine learning. And social impact startups are lining up to dive into this space. However, there are numerous challenges that are crippling growth. Take a look.
Hearing aids, prosthetics, wheelchairs, voice amplification systems, braille displays. Assistive technology comes in various shapes and sizes. and is increasingly being tailor-made to suit changing needs. Technology has played a large role in the advances in this field. With a growing population needing this kind of aid, the assistive technology market in India is expected to grow at a CAGR of 5.6%, shooting past $60 billion a year in the next 5 years. This is good news for the over 2.5 crore Indians who live with one form of disability or another.
But there's a gap. Data from Statista indicates that around 18% of India's disabled population does not have access to assistive tech products. One reason for this is that cost is prohibitive. The other has to do with business models that companies are using to design, develop and market this technology.
Some of the more common assistive devices like wheelchairs, crutches and magnifiers are available direct to consumers, but these are usually rudimentary in design. Versions that are powered by newer technology are not. A number of startups which have emerged to meet the demand for assistive technology-enabled products in India, like Trestle Labs, which designs devices and systems to help the visually impaired with their reading, say they prefer the business-to-business model and only residual transactions involve selling directly to consumers.
We actually figured out that B2B segments, or I would say schools, colleges, libraries, public libraries, NGOs, and even offices, they served as our institutional customers, where almost 70 to 75% of our deployments are.
Experts and market players acknowledge that this can be a problem in a country like India, where around 69% of the overall disabled population, that's over 1.86 crore people, live in rural areas. But they say that reaching this large population poses problems that often go beyond cost effectiveness and logistics, and so serving institutions that have this reach is a better option.
We don't have that kind of money to spend to the tier 5, tier 6 cities or the village level. And the majorly PWD coming from those regions, right? And the person who are living in the Ahmedabad or Mumbai or Delhi or metro cities, tier 1, tier 2 cities, they know about this product and they can procure from our distributor.
The lack of funds has also meant that several startups in the assistive space are struggling to stay alive, let alone maintain their foothold in the market. But there are other limitations. For one, assistive technology requires a high degree of customization, and that means online marketing and delivery systems are largely not viable. Another is legal. The processes for patenting devices and assistive technology are governed by different rules and regulations in different countries. So even though India is among the top 3 growth markets for assistive technology, Indian startups are limited from scaling their products to other markets and accessing a market which, by whose estimates, is made up of roughly 15% of the world's population. Government intervention designed to support this space will prove crucial in the years to come, especially with global disposable income, with the consumer market for assistive technology slated to reach $9 trillion in a few years. In Mumbai, with Shraddha Tiwari, Arundhati Ramanan.
And with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned. The news continues on CNBC-TV18.